What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Motorola Edge 2025. And in this video, we're going to be going over my top 5 pros and 5 cons of this phone. So without further ado, let's get started. Now first, I'm going to go over my top 5 favorite things about this device, and I'll save the negatives for the end, because I prefer to be positive. Now the first thing I want to go over are the materials of this phone, which are actually a really nice surprise. Now starting off with the material on the back. Now this material, at first glance, appears to be leather. It has the texture of leather, kind of the look of leather as well, but it's not total leather. Instead, it's called vegan leather. Now, compared to other composite materials that I've used on smartphones or smartphones that have glossy backs to them, this material is one of my favorites, and there's certainly a good reason why Motorola has carried over this material from previous generations. It holds up really well. It doesn't have any fingerprints. You can't see any fingerprints here on the device, even though I've actually been using the phone for quite a bit at this point. And then also when holding this phone, this material feels very soft. Now, I do understand that there are a lot of people who prefer to have a case on their smartphone, so if that is your preference, then I suppose the actual material, or at least the feel of it, really doesn't matter a whole lot. But there might still be some times where you want to have a case in your phone and then other times where you don't. So just know that the actual material we're getting here on the phone certainly doesn't make it that it's mandatory to have a case, because there are other devices I've used before where I definitely want to have a case on it regardless. Another benefit of this material as well is that it is nice and grippy, so you don't have to worry about the phone sliding out of your hand. There's certainly phones that I've used before where I feel like I literally cannot hold the device unless I do put a case on it. So that's another benefit of this material. Now the Motorola logo here on the back is a slightly different material, so that does look nice. So they just did a really good job making this mid-range smartphone look and feel a lot more premium than it technically is. Now this color is technically called green. It doesn't look very green to me, so I suppose that is kind of a downside with this material. I do wish it maybe even had a gradient. I think that would have looked really cool, but I suppose it's really not that big of a deal, and overall there are a lot of benefits here. Now also, the material on the sides of the phone are aluminum, so that's also nice that it's not plastic. I definitely applaud Motorola for that. Now my second favorite thing about this device definitely has to be the display. We're getting a very stunning 6.7-inch display. This display is POLED, so we're getting super bright and vibrant colors. And also, we're getting a 120 Hz refresh rate here with this phone. So it's super fast, super snappy. That's another aspect of this device that makes it feel a lot more premium than it technically is. So I'm really happy to see that here with the Motorola Edge 2025. In addition to that, we're getting very small bezels all around the phone, with it actually having a 92% screen to body ratio, which is way better than other phones that I've tested here on the channel. So this phone just looks really expensive. It looks high end, even though technically it's not. It also gets pretty bright too at 4500 nits, so that is very bright. So if you are outside, you don't have to kind of like shade your phone to be able to look at the display. This phone is meant to be used indoors and outdoors, and for a lot of mid-rangers, and especially phones sold at the prepaid carriers, that's not necessarily that common. I've used a lot of phones where you literally cannot use it out in the direct sunlight. And another benefit of this device as well is that we are getting Corning Gorilla Glass 7i, so that is a nice high quality glass here on the device. So if you do happen to drop the phone, and especially face flat, you're not very likely to cause major damage, hopefully no damage at all, but it's certainly a good quality piece of glass here protecting the display panel. And my third favorite thing about this device are the various cameras that we're getting. So this time around, compared to the predecessor model of the phone, we're actually getting an additional camera. So the new camera here is a 10 megapixel telephoto, which gives us a 3x optical zoom. So no longer do you have to use a Motorola Edge and rely on digital zoom. We're actually getting real optical zoom here. And then the other cameras are a 50 megapixel ultra wide and a 50 megapixel main camera. So going over here to the camera app, I'll show you a few of these cameras. This is the main camera right now. Then from there, we can go over to 0.5 for the ultra wide. So you can see I can fit a lot more content into a single frame. And then if I go over to 3, that's the actual optical zoom. So you can see here that it really is zooming in nice and crisply on that plant back there. My third favorite thing about this device is that we're getting wireless charging. Now, we don't always find wireless charging with mid-range smartphones, but we do have it here. And it's also 15-watt wireless charging, which I find to be really impressive as well. So if you want to put this phone on a wireless charger, it'll work with no issues at all. Another thing too is that if you can find a magnetic charging case or a MagSafe case, you can certainly put that here on the device, pair up this phone with a MagSafe charger, and then it will begin charging your phone. so it's definitely nice having that flexibility by having wireless charging built in. And certainly since MagSafe kind of became a thing, I do use it with as many smartphones as I can, and not just iPhones. Like for example, my Galaxy S25 Ultra, I usually have that with a MagSafe case, so I do use my MagSafe chargers with that device, and I'm looking forward to also doing the same here with my Motorola Edge 2025. Now there's a lot of awesome things about this phone, but coming in at number 5 is the large battery that we're getting. Now with the Motorola Edge 2025, we're getting a very large 5200 milliamp hour internal battery, but not only are we getting that, but we're also getting up to 68 watt fast charging. Now unfortunately, in the box, there is no fast charger included, we're just getting the USB-C, but if you are using a wall adapter that does support 68 watts, then if you use that USB-C cable with that adapter, you can recharge this phone very fast, which is certainly a great thing. I'm a big fan of fast charging, so the faster the better, that's for sure. But then also having a big battery here with the phone means that you can get a lot of longevity out of the phone on a single charge, so that's all really awesome. So now that I've gone over the benefits of the phone, let's go over some of the cons with this device. Now the first one is the curved display. Now for some people, this might not be a problem at all. I know some people do prefer a curved display, but if you don't want a curved display, then you might not like this device. So it is certainly very curved. Even compared to the previous generation, it's a lot more curved. It doesn't impact me as far as usability, and in many ways it makes the phone look very sleek, but if that's something you don't like, then just know that it's there. Another downside with this device is that there is no 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, for a while now, we've been not seeing headphone jacks on many smartphones. Now, the lower end devices do tend to have a headphone jack, so if that's something that you are expecting here with the Motorola Edge 2025, just know that it's not there. Now, of course, you can get a USB-C adapter, so you can plug in your traditional wired headphones with this phone, but just know that there is no actual jack here in the device. So I know for some people that's a complete deal breaker. They really need that headphone jack, even in 2025. So I am curious to know in the comments, let me know if that matters to you or not. The next downside with this device is that we are getting a decent amount of bloatware. For example, you can see right there under games, we've got all these games that I don't necessarily want. There's even a games app. I don't know if any of this is really necessary. I don't know who's looking for this. I feel like these developers paid Motorola to have their games highlighted here. So many people do consider this to be bloatware. Also, there's a lot of AI features built into the phone, which I personally find to be a benefit, but if you're someone who just wants a bare bones smartphone, almost pretty much stock Android, then just know that you're not necessarily getting that here. Now, appearance-wise, we are getting many of the aspects of stock Android, but they have added in a lot of extra features. We're also getting quite a few Motorola-specific apps, so if that's also something that you don't want, then I suppose you might want to go for something a little bit more simplistic, such as Google Pixel. I don't know, just kind of depends on your preference, but certainly there won't be any doubt that you have a Motorola smartphone if you are using this device. We've even got other bloatware features up here like newsfeed. I mean, this is built into the operating system. There's a time and a place for the news, that's for sure. Maybe this is stuff you want to see, but also sometimes I don't want to have the news always in my face. It might not be the healthiest thing out there. It depends on your preferences, but one thing's for sure, they are kind of curating an experience for you, whether you like it or not. And on the topic of software, Motorola doesn't necessarily have always the best reputation of giving you timely Android software updates. Now, you're certainly not going to run into issues. The phone's going to operate fine, just as you bought it. But if you are looking for a device that gives you the latest and greatest versions of Android as soon as possible, that's certainly a place where Google Pixel does shine. And even Samsung lately has kind of been falling behind, and they've made a lot of changes. That's a whole different topic with their user interface, and I understand why some of the delays did exist. They had genuine reasons, whereas other brands like Motorola don't always have too many excuses. But again, if you were expecting really fast and frequent Android software updates, you might want to look into a different brand. Now with this device, another thing I want to point out is that we are getting the MediaTek Dimensity 7400 Ultra. Now, I like MediaTek a lot. They make really good chips. I feel like they're a great competitor to Snapdragon, who I also like, and I've worked directly with both brands in the past, and hopefully more so in the future. So both brands are great. Just know though that you're not necessarily getting the highest performing processor here with this device. So it certainly runs smoothly. It has no problems handling many of the tasks of the operating system, but I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got from that test. So I got a single core score of 1076 and a multi-core score of 3006. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to see how the benchmarks measure up versus what you currently have. because you certainly would not want to upgrade to this device and then find out that it's actually slower than another phone that you're using right now. Another downside with this device is that there is no microSD card expansion, so if that is a feature that you enjoy using with Android devices, just know that that feature is not present here. But this concludes my video on pros and cons of the Motorola Edge 2025. Overall, I think this is an awesome smartphone, definitely a great value, and there's a reason why the Motorola Edge series of phones have sold really well over the years. Motorola has really given us a lot here for the money. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, definitely give it a thumbs up. But this is Kevin here, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.